I'm Shannon Ireland, your host of a Healthy Push podcast. I struggled with anxiety, panic disorder, and agoraphobia for 15 years. Everything used to be hard for me. Even just driving 5 minutes from my house used to feel impossible. But now I absolutely live for travel and adventure, and I experience lots of peace and joy. I've not only reclaimed my life, but I've helped hundreds of others to do the same. Here, we stop managing anxiety and instead we create a healthy relationship with it. One where you say goodbye to the anxious thoughts, symptoms, panic attacks, and fears, and you actually live your life. Forget complicated strategies, quick fixes, or the same old hacks you've heard 100 times before. Each week, I'll bring you simple, actionable advice and honest conversations that lead to real, long-term healing. You aren't just an anxious person, my friend. There are reasons why you're struggling with anxiety, and these are things you can fix and heal from. And this is where that journey begins. Welcome. You're right where you're meant to be. Hello, and welcome back to a Healthy Push podcast. So today I want to talk to you about something that doesn't get nearly enough space in anxiety recovery conversations. And that is grief. Grief and the sadness and the anger. And this feels so freaking unfair, part of struggling with anxiety, panic, and agoraphobia. Because oftentimes it's not just hard, it often feels like anxiety has robbed you, like robbed you of so much, right? Like years, maybe it's been a decade or more, and you've been robbed of experiences and opportunities and trips and confidence and spontaneity and that version of you that you might remember that felt so free. And that hurts, right? And it's so freaking hard. Maybe you've missed some really big things like weddings and funerals and vacations. And maybe you've turned down some job opportunities or you've turned down some opportunities to do things that you really love, things that you're really passionate about. And maybe your world got smaller and smaller and you didn't really notice it when it was happening. But these waves of grief hit you and you can see it. And you can see how small your world has gotten. And you can see that you have sort of been watching it happen. And sometimes you can sit there and think, and I know this, how did this become my life? Like, how is this me? How is this how things look? And I know it can look and feel unrecognizable. You never really think that you're going to be in this place where things feel so restricted and limited, and you're not that person that you feel like you once were. And there's so much that you feel like you can't do, or so many things that you just feel like you're missing. And if this is you, I just want to say, I get it. And it makes so much sense. It makes so much sense to feel like anxiety has robbed you of so much. This is grief. And I think what a lot of people don't realize is that anxiety often brings grief with it, but we don't call it grief. Like, we don't even acknowledge it as grief. We don't really recognize it. Instead, we do this thing where it's totally human, but we call ourselves weak, right? We say, you're behind, you've ruined everything, you should have tried harder, you should have did more, you should have done better if you had known this, if you had done that. But really what's happening is you're grieving. You are grieving the life that you thought you'd be living, the life that you really wanted, right, and hoped. You're grieving time, which is such a massive thing, right? Time is the most precious thing we have. And to grieve time is really hard. And you're also grieving ease, right? Things just feeling not hard, like just easier. And you're grieving a version of you that definitely felt more capable. And I have to say this, grief is not self-pity. it really truly means you care. It means that things matter to you. When you feel that grief, it means you care a whole lot. And of course, it hurts, right? Of course, it's hard. But I want to reframe something for you because this is really important. And I wish somebody had said this to me when I was struggling. And I know you're probably not going to believe me, but that's okay. I still want you to try to hear me. Anxiety has likely changed a lot of things that you have done or haven't done, or ways that you continue to do things, or things that you continue to say no to. It has probably changed, like where you've gone and how often you've showed up and how you showed up, but it has not erased who you are. Your identity has not gone anywhere. Anxiety has changed your behavior, not your identity. Okay. You are still kind. You are still adventurous. You are still spontaneous. You are still funny. You are still intelligent and creative and loving. And I know this stuff you're probably like, no, Shannon, I'm not. But I look back on my own journey and I'm like, all those pieces of me, they were always there. Sure, I felt like anxiety killed my adventure spirit and my spontaneity and my like carefreeness, but those things were there. It was just buried. And there was a lot of avoidance and things that covered up these parts of me, but they're parts that you can't get rid of. So, avoidance, sure, has probably caused you to bury some of these things, but your identity is still there. Anxiety changes your nervous system's response, but it didn't take away, it cannot just delete the amazing human that you are and the amazing human that you've always been. And all of those really beautiful parts of you, they are still there. They've just been operating under threat mode, and that's incredibly hard. So, I don't want you to see your survival, your nervous system responses as failure. It is not failure. This is really important. So many people look back, and I used to do this. They look back on the past several months or years or longer, and they say, I have wasted so much time. I ruined everything. I should have pushed harder. My kids are getting older. I've missed so much, or my parents are aging and I've missed so much. But we've got to pause and recognize your nervous system has been through a lot. And if your body has been firing off of these alarms constantly, avoidance isn't a weakness. It was just protection, right? You saying no, you not doing the things, you not facing the things, you not saying yes. It's not weakness, it's protection. And of course, you're trying to protect yourself, right? And your brain has been doing what it knows to do to try to keep you safe. And that's not failure, it's survival. And I always, always tell my students, like, you are doing the best that you can do while navigating life with a ton of anxiety and fear. And you've got to acknowledge this without arguing with it or without beating yourself up, because that is not going to make anything easier, better. It's just going to make things so dang hard. So, when these feelings of loss come up, right, the grief, most people respond with shame, which is a lot of the work that I do with my students because shame is almost always a part of the picture. Like, it's such a human response when we're really struggling and we've been struggling for a long time with something. People often criticize themselves and they've been doing it for a long time. They have been replaying the should haves and just replaying life and how they should have been better and done things differently. And it makes so much sense. But shame keeps your nervous system in this threat mode. It keeps your nervous system constantly in this space where it makes it incredibly hard to heal. There's often not a whole ton of safety when you're in that shame mode. On the other hand, self compassion creates safety. And safety is what actually allows us to heal, which is why I talk so much about developing safety and self trust and being kind and gentle with yourself, because we need safety in order to heal. So instead of saying things like, I can't believe I let this happen, right? Which is probably genuinely maybe how you feel. I know it's how I felt. What if instead we just said, this is really hard. This is really painful. Of course, I feel sad. Of course, I feel angry. I'm allowed to feel this way. I'm allowed to grieve. And anyone in my position would be struggling and be feeling this way, right? Instead of that shame, that blame, we've got to have a healthy response, a healthy internal response, and have some self compassion. Really just acknowledging, like, this hurts, this sucks, this is hard, allowing yourself to be human and offering that gentleness of how can I actually support myself and be kind to myself right now. Bringing in self compassion really helps you to be able to take steps forward and to grow and to heal because there's that safety that allows you to grow and heal. So, another thing that often comes up when you feel like anxiety has robbed so much from you and you're feeling this grief is we do this comparison, right? Like, I am so behind everyone else. Look at everyone else's lives. Look how happy they are. Look how much they're doing. Look at what their life looks like. And we convince ourselves we're behind maybe in relationships or in career or in certain milestones like getting married, having babies, all that stuff. But healing has its own timeline, okay? And you're not behind in life. Like your path includes anxiety recovery. Some people's paths include different sorts of recovery, right? And these things don't make you late, it makes you human. And I know it might feel like this chapter that you're in feels like it's the entire book, but it's not the whole book. I know when you're in it and you're really struggling, you can get so caught up in this mentality of like, this is it, right? This is just my life. This is my whole life, and I've ruined it. And I might as well just give up. I get that, like, sincerely. But there are still so many experiences ahead of you and so much life, and so much can look so differently. Like, your nervous system has the capacity and the ability to unlearn and learn new things and to change and to expand. And your world can grow again and you can uncover all those parts of yourself. And I'm sure if you've been taking some small, healthy steps, like I always encourage, you've been able to see this. Like you are not so behind. You're just really struggling and you've been struggling. And that's okay because it's incredibly human. We can't compare ourselves to anyone else or to anyone else's journey. We just have to focus on ourselves, right? And our own journey and taking the small steps today. And I also want to say something gently here. I know that it really feels like anxiety takes a lot. Like all the things that I talked about right in the very beginning. And it's really hard because it feels really unfair. And I know it can bring so much freaking anger. Like I had so much anger when I was struggling and so much sadness. But I really want you to recognize that anxiety, although it feels like it takes a lot, it also gives a lot. And I know this sounds crazy, and you're probably like, Shannon, just shut up. But it really does give. It it really forces depth and growth, and it teaches you a whole lot of emotional awareness and resilience and empathy, and you learn what actually freaking matters. And I look back on my journey and I know, like, of course, I would say I would rather have not gone through any of it. Like, life would have undoubtedly been easier, and I would have gladly hit skip. But also, there's a big part of me that says, I'm very grateful because all the things that I went through have allowed me to actually uncover who I actually am. And I don't think I ever really truly had that awareness. I don't think I ever had that connection to myself because I didn't have the best relationship with my emotions and especially with anxiety. And I'm not saying you've got to be grateful for what you're going through and you got to be grateful for the anxiety, but I do want you to acknowledge that you are not the same person that you were when you started struggling. And that doesn't mean it's a bad thing. That different doesn't mean you're broken or that it's worse. Different can mean good, it can mean deeper, and it can mean growth. And these things are really meaningful and they will give back to you for the rest of your entire life. This I think is why I do have so much gratitude for what I went through because it has allowed me to really grow and to be connected with myself and to be able to be here talking to you, right? And to support people and to really give hope and inspiration and knowledge and wisdom and all the things and not just that, the giving part. I love giving to people, but it's also what it's given me and taught me about myself and it's just allowed me to be a much more trusting, compassionate person who feels really safe and good in my body and in my brain, which years ago, of course, is not something that I ever experienced. I never felt that safety. I never felt that comfort in my own brain and body. So, yes, anxiety does feel like it takes so much, but it also teaches you a lot and it also gives you a lot. And I think it's important to recognize this because it's not all bad, right? I know anxiety just sucks and we want to look at it as this thing that's awful, but it really is just protection and it can help us to develop a better relationship with ourselves if we allow it. So, back to grief, because I could have so many conversations about grief. It's one of my favorite topics because I think it's not talked about enough and it's not acknowledged and recognized. And it's a big reason why people stay stuck. And I always want to make people's journeys less hard and less long. So, I want you to acknowledge you can grieve what anxiety has taken, and you can believe that more is possible. Like, both can exist at the same time. You don't have to pretend it doesn't suck. You don't have to pretend it doesn't hurt. But I want you to remember this. Anxiety, yeah, has written some chapters that maybe you'd like to rip out and burn, but it's not writing the entire book. And it did not erase those previous chapters. It did not erase you. You were still you. You were still amazing. All those parts of you, they are still there. We're not trying to get back to the you from months, years, a decade ago. We're really working on moving forward as someone who understands themselves more deeply and is a lot more connected and is a lot more kind and compassionate and understanding. And you're going to do the things again. Okay. You're going to do all those things that you really want to do, to travel, to become a parent, to get married, to show up at the things that you want to show up at. It might be differently and it may be more slowly and it may be more intentional, but you will. And you deserve to support yourself and to be compassionate with yourself while you get there. I always tell my students, you cannot force recovery. You cannot force yourself to be this person that you used to be and to have all those parts come back overnight, right? We're building it slowly, but it is going to come back. And I see this time and time again. So many students that I've worked with will say, Shannon, this is the best version of me right now. I never could have imagined that this is what my life could look like, that this is how I could feel. And that to me is massive. I'm like, you can go do all the things. And yes, I'm so excited for you and I'm so proud of you, saying yes and taking the trips and getting in the car and doing all the things. But it's so much more powerful and special to me when somebody is like, I am letting myself feel. And I am okay being in my mind and being in my body. And I feel that safety and I feel that trust. And I really do trust that I am my safe place. There is nothing freaking better than that in my eyes. So I want you to allow grief to exist, but we can move with grief, right? And we can continue to take healthy steps with grief while letting you feel all the things. I always say you don't have to pretend that struggling with anxiety doesn't suck. You can acknowledge the suck and continue to take those steps and reclaim those pieces of yourself and live that big, beautiful life that you want to live. So I have to say here, I'm going to put a link to my free quiz in the show notes. If you have been struggling for years, a decade or more, I want you to take this quiz because it's going to help you to see what has been keeping you stuck. And I give you some really helpful shifts that you can take. And it's not the things that I'm sure you've heard a million times. Like, I actually dig in. I want you to get the support. I want you to get the steps that you need to heal. So I'm going to link to the quiz. And also, if you're like, Shannon, I'm so overwhelmed. I've been struggling for so long. I want you to look at my Healthy Push coaching and community. Oftentimes, what people are missing in their recovery journey is support, is guidance, is connection. These things help us to heal. When we can heal alongside others who are struggling with similar things, when we can actually feel heard and seen and supported and given the steps, it makes our journeys so much less hard and just helps to expedite things. So I would love for you to check that out. People often ask me if I do one-on-one coaching. I don't do any one-on-one coaching outside of supporting my Panic to Peace students and my students in my Healthy Push coaching and community, just because I don't have the capacity to do more outside of that. But truly in my coaching and community, you get weekly support from me. You get daily support. Like, I'm in the community, but I also show up live every Monday. I teach on a topic that the community votes on, and we have conversation. I teach, I open it up, we have conversation, we have support, connection, all the things that really help you to heal. And it's a safe space. Like, we heal in safe spaces. Okay, I'm not going to keep rambling about it. I'll put the link in the show notes, but I want you to check that out. And of course, until next time, keep taking healthy action. I hope you loved this episode of A Healthy Push. If you have, I'd be so grateful if you could leave me a rating and review wherever you're listening to this podcast. This helps people to find the show and get the support they need. And if you know someone who could use a little push, be sure to share this episode with them. And for even more support, head over to ahealthypush.com for show notes and loads of tips, tools, and inspiration to help you on your recovery journey. I'll see you next week.